Anyone close to me thinks that I likely am something between God, Einstein, and the Antichrist. Because how can I do anything I want and cross every discipline boundary like it's a playground and never lose?
Order in the court.
You, my child, are the only one between me and the other side. I am ready to leave the love and kindness and goodness and patience that I mix with everything else that I am and become a cold-blooded killer.
Once Dunch sent that email to his ex-girlfriend, there was no going back. That night, he set his humanity aside and gave in to his dark side. But for the world around him, he was still his former self. A few weeks later, he arrives at Baylor Medical Center to perform another routine procedure. This time, his patient's name is Barry Morgluff, a business owner in his mid-40s who suffers from chronic back pain due to problems with his L5-S1 disc. To fix it, Dunch will perform a lumbar discectomy, a simple procedure that involves removing the damaged portion of the herniated disc to relieve pressure on the nerve.
You have nothing to worry about, Mr. Morgluff. I am the best doctor in Dallas. I'm thankful God put me in your hands, Dr. Dunch. I'm glad he did too. In the end, not everybody is an MD PhD spine neurosurgeon.
Meanwhile, a few doors down the hospital's corridors, veteran general surgeon Dr. Randall Kirby is informed that he will serve as an assistant consultant in the same operation. As he heads towards the scrub room, he remembers that colleagues have referred to Dr. Dunch as one of the most promising new hires at Baylor. According to rumors, he's been at the top of his class for 15 years and has even founded his own stem cell startup called Discgenics. However, when Dr. Kirby and Dr. Dunch meet before the operation, something doesn't add up. Dunch seems distracted, unsteady, and carries himself with a very unsettling type of arrogance. Minutes later, when Barry's surgery finally begins, Dr. Kirby's concerns reach a breaking point. At the OR, Dunch is unable to complete even the most basic steps of the procedure, constantly misusing his instruments in ways that resemble those of a novice. Appalled by his reckless technique, Dr. Kirby tries to redirect the operation by repeatedly questioning his decisions.
You need to place the screw in the bone, not the soft tissue. Shut up and let me do my work.
Unfortunately, just as the surgery is about to reach a critical stage, Dr. Kirby is called by the hospital administration to consult on a more urgent operation. When he arrives home at the end of the day, he begins documenting what he saw and shares his concerns with colleagues and administrators at Baylor.
He has the technique of a first-year resident student. Something is off here.
After long hours of research, Dr. Kirby discovers that Dunch had left his two previous patients with permanent nerve pain or paralysis. Yet no matter how many complaints he and the victims' families make, the hospital administration refuses to take any action within its power to stop Dunch. Even worse, they do not reveal the reasons behind their actions, purposely keeping any accusation away from the media. As Dr. Kirby tries to make sense of the magnitude of what Baylor is trying to conceal, two questions weigh heavily on him. Why would Dunch spend over 15 years studying medicine just to harm the very patients he swore to protect? Is this the act of a killer, a psychopath, or just a terrible doctor? It is 2007 at the University of Tennessee, 4 years before Dunch starts working at Baylor. As executives and colleagues gather in an auditorium, Dunch presents a startup idea that could revolutionize how hospitals around the U.S. deal with spine surgeries. Using stem cells to regenerate damaged spinal disc, thereby eliminating the need for traditional invasive procedures. When the presentation comes to an end, a big round of applause fills the room with positivity and excitement. Minutes later, a small circle of investors, including Dunch's residency supervisor, Dr. John Robertson, approach him to express a profound interest in being part of the project. But contrary to what they think that night, they aren't about to back a revolutionary breakthrough that will change medicine forever. Instead, they are becoming accomplices to one of the largest scams and system failures in the history of the healthcare industry. 1 year after the presentation, on September 18, 2008, Discgenics is founded with more than $20 million in total funding rounds. However, the reality behind closed doors is that Dunch is struggling to balance the worlds of research, business, and neurosurgical practice. To cope with such a burden, he regularly meets with his childhood and best friend, Jerry Summers, to partake in illegal leisure activities. In the depths of the night, they reminisce about the good old days when they used to play football together in high school, dreaming of a life where they could reach the NFL. While Jerry had to give up the sport due to a serious neck injury, Dunch took the dream a step further. In a leap of faith, he attended both the University of Colorado and the University of Memphis to pursue a football scholarship as a linebacker. Unfortunately, due to his lack of natural ability, he never made it past tryouts and saw his dream come to an end sooner than he could have ever expected.
If I couldn't make it on football, at least I'll become the richest neurosurgeon this country's ever seen. You got this, brother.
In that moment, a brilliant idea sparks in Dunch's mind. The next day, he begs Dr. Robertson to reduce his surgical hours so that he can allocate more time to growing Discgenics.
Are you crazy? You're not even finished with your training yet. Doctor, please. If I don't, the company may go bankrupt. Bankrupt? What do you mean?
2 years later, in 2011, Dunch and Jerry find themselves moving to Dallas to start a new life far away from home. Following graduation from his spine fellowship, Dunch was immediately hired at Baylor Medical Center as one of the most promising talents. With his departure from Tennessee to Dallas, Discgenics moved forward with a new leadership team and continued support from Dr. John Robertson, who served as both mentor and an influential stakeholder. Back in August, as Dunch and Jerry finally arrive at their new home in suburban Plano, they settle into what appears to be the beginning of a bright future. With a $600,000 base salary and a significant upfront investment from Baylor, Dunch soon establishes his own private practice, the Texas Neurosurgical Institute. At the same time, he begins dating a 27-year-old nurse named Kimberly Morgan, who assists him during his business and will soon become his medical assistant in his upcoming surgeries. However, when the time came for Dunch to treat his first few patients, the fantasy lifestyle he had created finally starts to crack. Kenneth Fennell, Lee Passmore, and Barry Morgloff are all seriously injured and will spend the rest of their lives with permanent disability. As all hell breaks loose in the Plano household, Dunch starts making excuses and shielding himself from the truth.
It is the fault of those anesthesiologists and those stupid nurses.
That night, Jerry also learns that Dunch has more than $500,000 in debt and that he had actually been pushed out of Discgenics for mismanaging funds and failing to do his job. If he doesn't find a way of coming back from this situation, they both risk losing everything they've built.
I won't allow this to happen. Not when they've dragged your name in the mud.
Desperate to help his best friend, Jerry volunteers to undergo surgery to treat his old neck injury from his days playing football in high school.
You have nothing to worry about, brother.
When Jerry wakes up from the OR, he notices something unusual in his body. In a state of shock and confusion, he is unable to understand what has just happened to him.
Chris, where are you? What is wrong with me?
Yet no matter how many times he called for his best friend, there is no response. Jerry, now a quadriplegic, will never hear from Christopher Dunch again, and this incident will give rise to one of the most disturbing killers in the history of medicine. Shortly after, Dunch attends Baylor Medical Center to perform surgery on Kelly Martin, a 55-year-old elementary school teacher who had fallen from a ladder a few months earlier. In the meeting before the surgery, Dunch comforts her entire family.
We just have to remove the herniated disc, similar to how a dentist takes out a cavity. Quick and simple.
Her husband and daughter are not entirely comfortable with the idea of spine surgery, but Dunch's confidence reassures them.
20 minutes. That's all I need.
Unfortunately, inside the OR, things didn't go according to plan. In the midst of the operation, Kelly's blood pressure plummets due to a fatal injury in her iliac artery. As she is rushed to the ICU, the medical staff infuses her body with fluids, blood transfusions, and medications. But the damage is too much for her body to bear. When Dr. Kirby finds out that Dunch is responsible for Kelly Martin's death, his anger and strong sense of justice reach a boiling point. Refusing to back down, he continues to press Baylor to permanently revoke Dunch's license, accusing him of being guilty of homicide and of maiming innocent patients. But despite all his outrage and complaints, the hospital administration responds with a shocking public statement. Christopher Dunch has officially resigned from the institution and will no longer have surgical privileges at Baylor. This means that since he hasn't been formally fired, no mandatory report can be triggered to the Texas Medical Board, allowing him to work for any other hospital in the U.S. without any form of punishment for him or Baylor. As a result, the horrors of his surgical practice continue at Dallas Medical Center. During his first two surgeries, 64-year-old Floella Brown passes away due to a vertebral artery injury, while 71-year-old Mary Eford is left permanently disabled after a botched spinal fusion. But when Mary undergoes corrective surgery a few days later, Dr. Robert Henderson, a veteran orthopedic spine specialist, notices misplaced hardware, bone fragments, and many other signs of surgical malpractice inside her body. With such proof, he can make the case that Dunch's actions were not accidents, but clear evidence of incompetence. Motivated to bring him to justice, Dr. Henderson researches Dunch online and soon gets in contact with Dr. Kirby to share his story. Together, they continue to gather evidence, file complaints, and push for justice to one day expose the reality behind Dunch to the world. Yet, despite their efforts, the medical system continues to fail them over and over again by exploiting the same loophole as Baylor. From July 2012 to mid-2013, Dunch continues his surgical practice at two other medical institutions in Texas, a Legacy Surgery Center and University General Hospital. From his total of 38 surgeries, 33 resulted in patient harm, 2 patients died, and 31 were left with either paralysis, chronic pain, or quadriplegia. At this point, 17 months after his first surgery at Baylor, the situation has escalated to a point where the Texas Medical Board can no longer ignore Dr. Henderson and Kirby's complaints. All over the news, headlines brand Dunch as Dr. Death, and the level of public outrage against him is at an all-time high.
Well, it may seem downright terrifying.
Eventually, in December 2013, the Texas Medical Board permanently revokes Dunch's medical license. In 2015, he is finally taken into custody. Now, once the state of Texas has gathered enough evidence, millions of people will finally get answers to the questions they have been wondering for a long time in one of the most anticipated court cases of the decade. It is now February 6, 2017, and Christopher Dunch's criminal trial is about to begin. As tensions rise in Dallas, victims, families, and prosecutors gather to face the man who has ruined the lives of over 30 innocent people. Jerry Summers, Kelly Martin's family, Dr. Henderson, and Dr. Kirby will all testify against him, while lawyer Michelle Stuggart leads the prosecution for the state of Texas. On the other side of the courtroom, lawyer Robbie McClung will argue in Dunch's defense, while the only people supporting Dunch that evening are his defense team and his father. As the swearing in of the jury marks the start of the trial, Michelle breaks the silence with 4 central arguments. Firstly, she argues that Dunch wasn't sufficiently trained during his residency and fellowship program, while he founded Dysgenics. After reviewing the DA residency case logs from the University of Tennessee, it was found that Dunch had performed fewer than 100 operations instead of the required 1,000. To spend more time building Dysgenics, Dunch's supervisor, Dr. John Robertson, agreed to reduce his surgical caseload, which allowed him to focus on growing the business. Michelle's second point is even stronger, as she presents evidence of impairment and drug use. According to former colleagues, Dunch had been a regular consumer of cocaine and prescription painkillers for over 15 years. Even Jerry Summers himself had also accused Dunch of doing cocaine before his surgery, but he ended up backtracking on his statement.
I knew Jerry was paralyzed. Jerry said, Mom, Chris has done an 8-ball of cocaine before he performed my surgery.
Thirdly, Stuggart argues that Dunch's pattern of surgical outcomes proves that he kept operating despite knowing that he was repeatedly causing harm to his patients.
Because he owed people a lot of money, he wanted to live the high life, and neurosurgeons make the big bucks.
On the other side of the courtroom, however, Robbie McClung responds with 3 strong counterarguments. Firstly, he argues that Dunch is simply an incompetent doctor, not a criminal. According to her reasoning, his actions amount to malpractice rather than intentional harm. Secondly, she reinforces his claim and proves Michelle right by stating that Dunch's judgment was, in fact, impaired by drug use. Lastly, Robbie blames the University of Tennessee program for insufficient training, with fewer than 100 supervised surgeries logged compared to the 1,000 usually required, leaving him dangerously unprepared.
He didn't know he was risking anything. It was careless. It was wrong. But it's not to the level of criminal.
As the hours drag on in the Dallas courtroom, tensions continue to rise with each passing minute. One by one, victims and families take the stand, each story darker than the last. But what finally cracks the case wide open are 2 surprising revelations. As Kimberly Morgan, Dunch's assistant and ex-girlfriend, testifies via Skype, prosecutors present the email in which Dunch calls himself a cold-blooded killer. This way, she is able to prove that Dunch was aware of his actions, demonstrating intent in each of the butchered surgeries he performed. Minutes later, Dr. Robert Henderson testifies how he found grossly misplaced screws, bone fragments, and other signs of surgical malpractice in Mary Efford, a 74-year-old elderly woman. As the crowd listens to him with hope, he explains that according to American laws, hurting an elderly patient is never considered malpractice. It is always a crime. As the clock at the back of the room ticks as loudly as ever, the judge clears his throat, lawyers fix their ties, and the hearts of everyone present in that room begin to accelerate frenetically. Finally, the judge, Carter Thompson, makes the final decision. With a firm conviction, he sentences Dunch to life in prison for injury to an elderly person, aggravated assault, and harming innocent people with intent. Tears, relief, and joy fill the courtroom with a sense of justice. After years of pain, loss, and grief, the countless families that suffered are finally given closure. But even with Dunch's sentence to life in prison, what can guarantee that another tragedy like this won't slip through what is proven to be a flawed medical system? Fortunately, after the Dunch case, the state of Texas closed the very loophole that once allowed hospitals to avoid fines and reputational damage. Now, even if a physician quits while under investigation for criminal or malpractice offenses, the hospital is required to report this to the Texas Medical Board. This way, dangerous physicians can no longer resign in silence, and their medical license can be revoked before they continue to harm more patients. Similarly, across all other states in the U.S., hospitals are required to check the National Practitioner Databank before granting privileges. If a doctor has a history of malpractice or disciplinary action, that record appears in the system, and the hospital is forced to confront it before allowing the doctor to treat new patients. May this video inspire clinicians to speak up against injustice, institutions to tighten their policies against crime, and civilians to hold hospitals accountable whenever lives are put at risk. Because together, we can be the light that guides the healthcare system towards greater transparency and safety.